Hello and welcome to 109 Brook Street, Brook End Garden. Now, because of the coronavirus outbreak, we can't open our garden for the public this year, so instead we're producing a number of virtual visits. The first virtual visit via YouTube will be the spring visit, and this is today. Many visitors that come to our garden climb up the steep hill and carry on looking forwards to seeing the garden and don't stop at the top and turn around and have a look at the view. It's rather attractive. We haven't got any lambs yet, but soon that field opposite Hall Field will be full of lambs. It'll be a real sight. And as I scan round, you can see over the village, right on the edge of the village here, come round into our front garden. The very beautiful birch trees, which are great for birds as well, they love them. They're full of insects. And the big beech tree, which was here long before the house was. As we walk across the front lawn to our right, we have a hedge of Rosa rugosa. We also have a number of narcissi, different types, planted in the lawn. These started 20 years ago as just a few bulbs. Now they've grown into lovely clumps. Advance up the grass here. And ahead of us you can see the spinney, which is a triangular section in a corner of the garden, which was a sea of horrible clay. A few heathers, goodness knows why there were heathers planted there, and small conifers. We decided this was a golden opportunity to establish a new wood. As you'll see in this garden, what we're looking to do is provide one of everything, not on the grand scale like a big garden, but on a reasonable scale, and enough so we can actually have all the different habitats that we want for our plants. As you can see at the moment, this is when the spinney is in its full glory. It's amazing how quickly some of these native trees grow. We have problems with alders in this corner because we had some very, very dry years, which unfortunately alders don't like. They do like to have their feet in water all the time. But most of the other trees have done well. Quite a few have dropped out over the years, but now we've probably got a reasonable woodland as a result. Primroses seem to particularly like it here. We've got them all around the garden at this time of year. You see, they love to grow on the forest fringe, on the fringe of the wood. You see in the background there's the bluebells. They're not in flower yet, but it will be soon. As we advance along the spinney, we can see one of our little coppices, which are very useful because they provide us with lots of sticks, and the ones that grow too big end up as firewood. A very valuable source, and always has been historically, of building material. And our little junkyard in the corner there is our working point, but also behind there you see the big black water tanks. Now they collect water from the roof, rainwater, and we have probably about 3,500–4,000 gallons of storage for it in different parts in the garden. And basically all the roof drains come down to a manhole cover, which is now in the centre of the picture, and there's a little pump in there that lifts the water up to the water tanks. And there's another pump inside the water tanks which actually feeds it round the garden where we need it, different containers, and also to provide an automatic watering system. This is the visitor's first view of our garden. You come through the iron gate at the side of the house, down the paved area. To the left is a very vigorous Virginia creeper, which is not yet in leaf but soon will be. And also to the left, as we come up the entrance here, you will see two rhododendrons in pots, and these are actually golden rhododendrons, and they'll be out in about a month's time. Very beautiful. With all these trees and coppices and so on that have to be maintained, we have quite a reasonable supply of wood, which we store in the little wood yard at the top there, and we have occasional open fires. And this area here with the aluminium staging, which is normally used in greenhouses, Margaret uses for growing on her plants. So when they get a bit bigger and they're tougher and they can be outdoors, it's a very convenient way to be able to work on them without having to bend down. Also provides very useful storage to keep stuff away. away from the weather. The potting shed on the left, which is Margaret's domain, and the 2 greenhouses, which are also her domain. I'm afraid I'm just the groundsman, I'm not the gardener. And as we just quick scan round, we'll see the rose and clematis patio ahead of us. The beds just outside the back door, which is just to your left there, are where many of our early spring and even winter plants grow. In the summer this will be hostas and shade loving plants, not to be very exciting, but in the spring it's really at its best here. And you can see there's a whole variety of different spring flowers here. Hellebores are particularly attractive at the moment. Narcissi, irises in the pot just below there, just finished I'm afraid. Missed those. Very beautiful. As we advance slowly along the bed, you can see here one of my favourite spring flowers, the snake's head fritillary. We have those in a number of places in the garden. They seem to really thrive in part shade. And this little bush here with its blackberries, and that's kept us entertained all winter because that's a sarcococca, which flowers and fruits at the same time, which is quite interesting, a bit like a lemon tree, but also has the most amazing winter scent. And there's a second garden there which also has spring flowers. So as we advance up the ramp, this was originally 2 very large steps which were very unmanageable, so we replaced the steps with a ramp. This is built as basically as a rose and clematis patio, so we have climbing roses around wires now. Unfortunately the ropes that were originally installed there rotted, though we have since found that there is a polypropylene rope that looks just like real rope and doesn't rot, so maybe sometime we'll go back to rope. This is where in the winter on a sunny day, when we've been working in the garden, we're all wrapped up to keep warm, we'll sit and have our cups of tea. Very nice it is too. As we look down, this garden really benefits from borrowed landscapes, particularly at this time of the year, because you can of course see through all the trees. We've quite a variety of roses, most of them are David Austin roses. You see they've just started to sprout now. When we do our summertime one, you'll see them in their full glory. You see that Margaret's been very busy with the climbing rose here. Got it all beautifully trained. That's absolutely rampant, this one. It requires to be kept in order. And onwards to the next bit of the formal garden, which is the herbaceous borders. Now, having looked at herbaceous borders in various large gardens, we thought, well, what we need is a fringe of yew hedge. So we've got a lot of little 1-year-old yew plants. Planted them back in 2003, and they're now a fully mature hedge. People tend to think of yew as slow growing, but it certainly isn't. It establishes itself very quickly and makes a really good hedge. And that hedge is probably home to at least half a dozen nests. Wrens and hedge sparrows being the favourite, but we've seen all sorts disappear into the yew hedge. It's very dense. Very safe for the young birds. Not much life in the herbaceous border at this time of year, but you can just see things are just starting to come up. The greens are always very attractive at this time of year, particularly on a nice bright morning like this morning. And onwards to the vegetable garden. And here we are in the vegetable garden. This wonderful little mobile, which has survived some very high winds this winter and whizzes round, and luckily it sits on very light bearings and spins very easily. We were looking for some time for a focal point to put between in the arch, so when you look through the arch you saw this, and then Margaret's dance group gave her this to her as a 70th birthday present. Brilliant, absolutely perfect, fits there nicely and whizzes around, provides movement and a very nice focal point. Right, well this is the vegetable garden, and as you can see we're very much into raised beds. You can actually, in the photograph to the right, you see the original raised bed vegetable garden. It's all made with sleepers. A lot of sleepers were used around the garden for very weird things, but we decided to use them for raised beds. And then we went on to ordinary wood beds, and these rotted very quickly. So various incarnations you see now of trying to overcome this problem. With some we've used engineering bricks underneath the wood to keep it off the soil, and that definitely helps. Unfortunately, the wood you get nowadays is not very well seasoned and tends to twist, so they tend to ride off the bricks, which is not very helpful. In the end I decided to bite the bullet, and we had two badly rotted ones at the top of the garden, right in the midst of a load of roots from the ash tree. So we thought we'll go for brick built ones, put deep foundations in to keep the ash roots going around them rather than in them. And last year we had phenomenal crops off the brick ones. They are flat topped of course, and also the roots are kept nice and warm by the brickwork, evens the temperature, and they are lined with old bags, compost bags, to make sure the moisture doesn't all soak through the bricks and dry out the roots. The little pyramid there at the top, that's the blueberry plant. They used to be down and amongst the other soft fruit, but we decided they need their own home, and it was convenient to build that and fill that of course with ericaceous compost, and to make sure it's in good acid soil, and they did very well last year. Big crop off them. Rhubarb's coming to life, as you can see. We've just had a rhubarb crumble last night from the forcer, a really nice tender rhubarb, very pleasant. Remains with celeriac. The winter vegetables have been very good this year. Celeriac not as big as previous years, but all the other root vegetables have done really well. You'll see parsnips in the foreground there, they've done really well this year. As we look across, the beds are rotated. Margaret keeps a record of where everything was planted this year and rotates the crops around. The one that doesn't rotate is in the middle there. That's the asparagus bed, and that's been very productive over quite a number of years now. See, it's just been topped off with our garden compost. The garden compost this year is absolutely amazing. It's really good quality, and most of it does actually go on the vegetable garden. The snag we're putting on the flower gardens, which are very densely planted, and it does generate a lot of weeds, which doesn't really matter in the vegetable garden because they're very easy to weed anyway, but it does if you've got to go trampling through the flower beds to get the weeds out. And it's on into the soft fruit area. To the left here we have blackberries. It's a thornless blackberry, which is wonderful for not tearing you to pieces when you're picking them, but it's incredibly rampant. It produces ones about 20 feet long at high season. Behind it has some gooseberries and the blackcurrants. Now the blackcurrants did very badly last year, and I think it was probably a result of previous droughts. Just in front of us here is the autumn raspberry bed. We did try growing some summer raspberries here, but they just don't like conditions here for summer raspberries. They're very poor, got diseased, so we dug them out. But we did also have plant some autumn raspberries, and they do very well. They crop over a long period, which is nice. Raspberries for tea right the way through, from anywhere from the middle of August right through until severe frosts in October, November. In the background we have the orchard of the hard fruits. Most of the orchard was planted in the winter of 2003-2004. In the foreground we have the trained apples, which are all eaters. So they start at the left hand end with very early eaters, and that down to the right hand end here are apples which you have to store for 2 months before they're eatable. So full range of eating apples right through the season. We have one other eating apple tree, which is the one right at the far in the centre of the picture at the back. And that's a Blenheim orange, fantastic apple, one I really love. Can be used as a cooker as well. It's quite sharp and very large, the apples, but they're beautiful apples. Foreground's a couple of bramley trees which were left here from a previous incarnation, very badly cankered, and again Margaret gave them a very severe pruning back to just the main structure, and she's grown completely new leaders, and they're now very productive, very attractive trees with very little canker on them. Just to the left here we have our little pear trees that look very insignificant but actually produce a lot of pears. They say pears for your heirs, but I think that's nonsense, because our pear trees started producing at quite an early age. And behind the pears in the background we have greengage and 2 plums. So quite a range of hard fruits as well as the soft fruits. Behind the orchard, as you can see, there is our composting area. We have 5 about 1 cubic metre Newsingham bins, they call them, just open fronted ones. And what we do with those is just throw everything in, and about once every 6 months we empty the bins we've been filling into the one empty bin, which is usually left after we've taken all the compost out of it, and chop the material up, wet it down, put it under an old carpet to let it rot down, and it produces the most beautiful compost. It's not a fast process, it's not fast compost, slow composting, so minimum of 6 months. The current lot we've just dug up is a year old, and it looks just like compost you buy in a bag. I've had a few problems this winter with drainage in this area. There's a depression in the ground here which has got about 2 feet of clay underlying it, and it acts like a pond. So the area I'm standing on now, and I'm walking up towards the pit you see, which I've dug here, up until very recently has been very, very wet indeed. It's just starting to dry out a bit. But what I've had to do is actually dig down into the clay to allow the water to run off. You can see that in my shadow. As you can see, it's filling up with water there, and the water's running down the side of the pit from the topsoil, and that's helping to drain things down. I've also had to put in a new side drain to take the water away from this depression. You can see it, water running down the bottom there, over the top of the bank at the back and down to the outside, and that's taking the water away now. I hope that will keep it a bit drier up here in future. Stepping away from the orchard, you can now see the summer house, what I call the National Trust ticket office, because it looks a bit like a National Trust ticket office. There's a nice wooden decking there to sit out on in hot weather in summer, and it's particularly nice in spring and autumn when it's quite cold outside, but there's some brightness and it's nice and toasty warm inside then. This decking, as you see, is circular in shape, and underneath it is a 5 metre diameter by 1 metre deep reservoir where we store water from the house. It's piped along the hedges using black plastic pipes and under the lawns where necessary, and that holds about 2,000 gallons of water, which seems a bit ridiculous at the moment, the amount of water we've had in the last few months. We've actually had 5 months rain in 2 months, up to February, which is quite amazing. A lovely view out from the summer house. This is our wild pond, which looks fairly open at the moment, but the bank all around will be knee-high in wildflower meadow very shortly. It's starting to grow up already. You can see how we cut the grass around it and leave it to grow up. In the foreground, to the left here, we have a willow bed. It was supposed to be all willows, but they got a disease, and one of them died, one of them nearly died. And the one that nearly died is recovered now. That's the one in the middle. And the other one grew very vigorously, which we potted, and we've got another supply. This is willow withies and willow stakes, which are very useful. You just have to remember not to just stick them in the ground when they're fresh green, or you've got a lot of willow trees. And this rather tall young tree here, which was about 5 feet tall when we put it in, is now a good deal higher, is actually a dawn redwood. In a few weeks' time that will be very beautiful. It has it's a sort of conifer that sheds its fronds in the winter, and they have a beautiful gold colour in the autumn, and they have a beautiful bright green colour in the spring. And you see the leaf buds are just starting to break through. Plenty of work to do in this bed, lots of tidying. Dead plants to come out, weeds to be dug up. It's on the list. And as we come down the hill, we come to the last of our hard fruit ones, which is a very ancient Bramley apple tree. We're not quite sure how old it is, but it's probably at least 80 or 90 years old. It was here before the house was built. We found that primroses grow extremely well in this garden, so we had quite a few growing under the apple tree, and we thought, well, if we spread them around a bit and discourage other things from growing there, that would make a rather nice base for the apple tree. It won't hurt the roots. And so now, as you can see, it's just coming into its own. As all this mass of primroses comes to life. This tree was rampant when we got here. It was huge, very tall. It had been completely unkempt for many years, unpruned. So over a period of 4 years we gradually reduced it and brought it down to the shape of a fruiting tree, which you can see is the open hand structure and the horizontal leaders going out. It's had a very severe pruning this year. It was a bit light with the pruning last year and it didn't do it any good at all. Apples seem to thrive from being well pruned. And as we walk down the hill here, we come to the woodland walk. You can't see the bark in the path very well at the moment because it's covered in leaves. So this is an area which is allowed to grow reasonably wild, not totally. We do try and keep it a little bit in order for woodland plants and woodland shrubs. And of course during the summer it's quite shady here. It's a nice place to come on a really hot day. This used to be all beech hedge along here, but previous owners had let them to grow wild and very tall, so we did actually cut it back to a hedge to some extent, but we kept some of the large beech trees to make a really nice shady feature at the bottom of the garden. And they are very elegant beech trees. I think they're just as elegant in the winter as they are in the summer. We go past Wall the owl, which is made of teak and came from Thailand. As well, we always get the children to give him a nudge, and you come and see he just rocks gently on his stand, which is quite safe actually because it's a 1/2 inch steel rod which holds him to the ground, so he's not going to fall over. So we'll just finish our walk along the woodland walk, along the bark path. You can feel the bark under my feet, but you can't see it because it's covered in leaves at the moment. Now you can see the big bank. The pond was actually built from the spoil when we built the new garage at the side of the house. So there was a great deal of rough material there, and it proved to be very effective for a wildflower meadow because it's mostly subsoil and you don't want rich soil for wildflower meadows because you just get lots of grass. It has got richer over the years, but we've seeded it with hay rattle, which is quite good at suppressing the grass. You can just see maybe in the foreground there a couple of groups of snake's head fritillaries which are just starting to come out. They're not quite as advanced as the one further up the garden. And onwards and onwards. Right, we're now moving on from the wild garden. You can see the summer house in the distance. I'm standing underneath an old ornamental apple tree. You can just see the stem there and the branches. It has two functions. It's very beautiful for 2 or 3 weeks in the spring when it has a lovely cerise coloured blossom. Very, very wonderful blossom, which is its moment of glory, but it also helps to provide extra pollination opportunities for the other apple trees, particularly the Bramley, which requires, as a triploid, requires 2 other apple pollens to actually pollinate it. So the more apples we have about, the better. And so look up here, this is another area which has suffered very badly. There's a clay pan under here again, which holds the water, and it's like a natural pond. And you can see how long and thick and lush the grass is there. I've had to go across it with a strimmer because it's not possible to put the lawnmower across it yet. Though things are rapidly drying out now, so I'm hoping we'll be able to cut that before the end of this week. There's a little enclosure in there which we call the topless sunbathing area because it's underneath the shade of the tree, so even if the helicopter flies over then you won't get caught out. These beds in front of us were the original beds which were here when we arrived, and they were completely overrun with conifers when we came here, apart from the beautiful cedar tree in the middle, which you can see there, which makes this really the hub of the garden. It's a great feature. Planted by the original owner, who came to see it about, I think it's about 10 years ago. She came on an open garden visit to have a look at her garden as was, and she was thrilled to bits to see this huge cedar tree which she planted as a little 1-year-old sapling. Okay, this fella here is a walnut. It's just started to produce walnuts. Grown by seed in a friend's garden and transplanted here. And one of the old fir trees that used to be next to it fell over and landed on it and bent it right over when it was little, but luckily it was supple enough to survive. Just on the left hand side of the picture here there's two features. One is a clump forming bamboo, which is a non-spreader, which is quite an attractive one. Makes very nice bamboos as well. And next to that is Margaret's snake bark maple, which will have very beautiful snake-like looking bark as it gets older. And that was grown from seed. It's probably about 8 or 9 years old now. It's quite slow growing, like a lot of ornamental trees. Good for a small gardener. But if you bought it in a nursery, it would cost you quite a lot of money. This is the most recent, one of the most recent parts of development of the garden. It's what we call Rose's garden. If you look very carefully, you can just see Rose through there. Rose is made of stone. She's a half-size figure of a lady, very beautiful lady. And again, we're growing a lot of roses in Rose's garden. So we have a bit of a laugh with the visitors when we put a sign up that says Rose's garden with an apostrophe in. And they all say you can't spell, and we all say yes we can. There's Rose, and this is her garden. Yes, we didn't have any pergolas in the garden. We decided we've missed out there. You can't have a garden without a pergola. But there wasn't really a suitable site for a pergola, so we went for the arches instead. And these arches have got some very beautiful climbing roses on, which you'll see when we do the later season stuff. You see Margaret's been busy putting down leaf mould, and Punch starting to bring all the beds up to their normal standard now. So he works very hard at these beds. We use leaf mould, special rose mulch, and we use strulch, which you can just see there, which is a composted straw with lots of iron in and things like that, which discourage slugs and nails, discourage weed seed growth, and also act as a very effective mulch to keep the moisture in the ground. This spring our big problem is moisture. Usually our big problem is dry, keeping things well enough watered. This is the main lawn. She's looking reasonably tidy now. It's had a good dose of moss killer, which also reinforces the turf, and it's coming up quite nicely now. I think it's going to be a good year for lawns this year because there's plenty of moisture in the subsoil now, and the grass has really got its roots down deep this year. This little tree in front of us, again, it's another beautiful ornamental tree, ideal for a small garden because it grows very slowly. This is a paperbark maple. Very beautiful in the autumn, that one. Beautiful autumn colours. And a very attractive tree for the rest of the year as well. And we move along now, along the fence line towards the hot garden. Right, we're now in the hot garden, which is not particularly hot this morning because it's quite a cool morning, although it's very bright. I can still remember designing this. It was literally done on the back of an old envelope. We decided we wanted to have raised beds around here, and we got changes in levels which are very confusing here, dropping in 2 different directions, so we need to do some terracing as well. We love raised beds. We think they work really well and they're much easier to maintain. grovelling on the ground. One or two bits are showing which don't normally, like the big water tank, which disappears when visitors come round. It has a very vigorous growing perpetual sweet pea in front of it. The buddleia in the corners are all trimmed back in the Easter trim. Less hysteria. And we've had a big clear out along the fence this year. That's a Montana clematis that was going absolutely mad, and that's been brought under control. We had some jasmines there which have completely lost control of. They had to be routed out. We've had a good clear out this summer. That'll all grow in over the summer, and there's quite a lot of new planting in there as well. The thing about these gardens, nothing lasts forever. You have to keep replanting, renewing, editing as well. Thugs that take over that have to be edited out. You can see we've just got our first few tulips in the garden here. They're always the first away because reflected light off the walls, and the walls around hold the heat. It's protected from the north and east winds as well. On the left, as you come towards the steps here up onto the deck, that's Musa Bastiu banana. And that survived a temperature of -16 one winter. Kept growing. When it does back onto the chimney, where we have our log fires in the coldest days of winter, and go up the steps of the patio towards the conservatory. It really gets very warm here in the summer, very, very warm. So all the plants which are now hiding cosily in the conservatory, as we look through the windows there, they'll all be coming out onto the patio here and various other places. Some in the shade under the beech tree if that's what they need, and some out in the full sunshine. And it's onward onto the main lawn. Right, we're now on the main lawn. There's quite a show of narcissi at this time of year, various different breeds which flower over quite a considerable period. As we gently scan round, we'll see the fish pond. The fish pond, which is about 5 metre diameter, was an idea we picked up from a garden which had interlocking circular flower beds. And we looked at this arrangement and thought that would make a really nice layout for a pond. And so here it is with 2 interlocking ponds. The top part, the small pond, has had various incarnations to get one that worked. It started as a gravel filter for the fish pond, but it leaked. It just emptied the pond, so it had to be routed out. So we decided to just have a marsh garden there, which was a jungle and a mess. So that had to go. And in the end we put another liner in the top and just make it part of the circulation of the pond. It's also, we call it the plantarium because we have a lot of variety of plants in there which are quite difficult to maintain with fish around. There is actually one lonely fish in there which keeps the mosquito larvae down. You can just see if you look down here, you probably see the fish are largely dormant at this time of year. The water's still cold. The net is over to protect them from herons, but also to keep the leaves out so we don't get too much rubbish in the pond during the winter. In a few weeks' time, when the water's up to 10 degrees average day and night, we'll recommission the pond filters, get the fountains working, take the net off, and commission the electric fence, which you may be able to see there. We had a raid from a family of otters. We believe they were otters. They took all the big fish we used to have in there and ate them on sight. That's why we know it's not mink, because mink aren't big enough to handle the size of fish that were there. We have electric fence now to make sure they can't get in again. As we come up the field, this is where we've got our spring flowering plants. So it's the Magnolia stellata just coming into flower here. As you can see all the buds there, that's going to be a real show of colour very shortly. And as we come round, we've got a few camellias. This is not land to grow acid-loving plants. It's quite alkaline, heavy clay. So these beds get specially treated to help the acid lovers. And we go for varieties which are known to cope with neutral to slightly alkaline. So this camellia is just coming out. had a very severe frost last night and I thought they might get frosted, but luckily they don't get the early morning sun because it's shaded, and that's apparently what does the damage. It's not the frost. They can survive the frost. They get the combination of frost and early morning sun. That's ruinous. And the other magnolia here, there's a Magnolia grandiflora, which you tend to see up against the walls of old houses. This one we decided to go out in the open. And that will have flowers in September. It has started flowering now. Large, beautiful flowers. The advantage of being low down there, you can actually see the flowers close up. And so you look through the gap and once again catch the borrowed landscapes, which we have all around this garden. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this virtual visit to our garden. It's such a shame that you won't be able to come and visit us directly this year. But our main concern is that the charities which are supported by the National Garden Scheme are liable to lose a lot of money. So what we would request is if you could go to the NGS website, and I'll put the link underneath the video so you can click directly to it. There's an opportunity to give a donation there. Please do that, because the charities which the National Garden Scheme support are particularly important at the moment. So a lot of them are nursing charities, and nurses are going to be fully stretched over the next year. So please donate generously. Thank you.